Shabbar Zaidi has authored multiple books, including Panama Leaks, A Journey for Clarity and Pakistan, Not a Failed State. He is well versed in Pakistan's tax law. It is said that taxes are the price of civilization. There can be no state and no rule of law without proper revenue mobilization. And revenues don't come walking through the door of the tax authorities. They have to be assessed and levied at the pain of penalty. The importance of documentation cannot be emphasized enough, and documentation will not happen by itself. It needs to be pushed, and every push will meet resistance. Overcoming this resistance is central to promoting the revenue interest of the state. Shabbar Zaidi, as FBR's chairman, he had introduced the Asset Declaration Scheme, whose deadline was July 3, 2019 by any measure. This scheme was considered as the most successful asset declaration program in the history of Pakistan. Any company formed outside Pakistan is offshore, but we are talking about companies set up in tax havens. These are mostly shell companies. This means that they don't do any business or have money in the country where they have been registered. The estimated assets held by Pakistani citizens in offshore companies is estimated to be around 70 to 100 billion, based on information publicly available. Panama leak is a blessing because all the assets are disclosed. The Pakistani state is now able to work towards better addressing the problem at hand, that is, working towards the betterment of the state so that the companies are compelled to invest locally and also address issues regarding the non-residency conditions which many businessmen exploit. Panama Leaks, A Blessing in Disguise, Offshore Assets of Pakistani Citizens by Syed Muhammad Shabbar Zaidi. Panama leak is a blessing in disguise for Pakistan's taxation policy if properly utilized and brought to its logical conclusion. Unless there is documented income-based taxation, Pakistan will never get out of its economic mess. We can achieve everything from the taxation system, including a collection of around rupees 3,000 billion in a year. However, the sources of assets held in Pakistan or outside Pakistan cannot and will not be identified. This is the reason why any effective movement or scheme for documentation is strongly resisted and results in a complete failure. Taxation is an economic measure to tax the people on their direct income, to create equity in society, and to identify the sources of assets of such persons, whether they are in Pakistan or outside Pakistan. Up to the 1990s, Pakistan was a relatively cultured country from a tax policy viewpoint. In my viewpoint, two fundamental sins were committed in the post-1990s period by Nawaz Sharif that have resulted in a complete blackout in identifying the sources of assets held in or outside Pakistan by Pakistani citizens. The question that we all need to answer is whether or not the Panama leak has revealed something which is unknown to us. The answer is perpetual silence on the most significant matter of our economic policy. When I say that a disclosure is a blessing in disguise, then I mean to say that Pakistan as a country should decide whether they want to continue with a system where there is effectively no direct taxation on income. As a student of economics, it is my prediction that no substantial economic development can take place without equitable distribution of wealth, and direct taxation is the only measure to achieve the same. This is not a leftist or capitalist thought. It is the only solution in the present world. Unfortunately, Pakistan happens to be a country where in almost all the cases the owner of assets are not identified in tax records. Furthermore, the way international developments on tapping the untaxed wealth is evolving, it would be very difficult for Pakistanis to hold such assets outside Pakistan if there is no declaration in Pakistan. It is a time for correction. As a nation, this is a blessing for us in disguise. It appears that such money is siphoned off without payment of taxes through illegal channels and represents either ill-gotten gains or kickbacks from public contract. Such money creates gross disproportion, inequality and disparity in the society, which wraps economic activity and growth, constitute plunder and theft of national wealth. Shabbar Zaidi has been writing on this matter for the last 2 decades, arguing that tax and foreign exchange regimes have been designed in a manner that supports non-declaration of real income and assets of the citizens, and at the same time a parallel foreign exchange regime provides ample and unsupervised movement of such wealth outside Pakistan. In short, what we see today is essentially the result of policies adopted in post-1990 regime. Now we have reached a state where results are becoming obvious and economy is moving towards stagnation due to the stagnation of real tax collection and accumulation of assets outside Pakistan. Partly as a result of the Panama Papers investigation, former Prime Minister Sharif was disqualified from the premiership, banned from politics, and fined $10.6 million on corruption charges. Revelations on the Panama leaks that Nawaz Sharif's children were linked to offshore companies that owned luxury apartments in London. Funds can be transferred between corporate banks' accounts in seconds, but identifying who owns companies involved in cross-border corruption cases can take authorities up to a year.